Hey folks, thanks for listening or watching the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. I'm Corey Seidman, he's Ricky Bottalico. Shout out to Spencer McKercher for holding it down earlier in the week.
The Kirch.
Giving me a little time off there, I appreciate it. But Rick, it's been a good week for the Phillies. They were pasted on Saturday by the Dodgers, but they had won every prior game on the homestand before that, sweeping the Tigers, winning game one against the Dodgers. The starting pitching has really stepped up. What stood out to me is the raised performance in the middle of the rotation with Ranger Suarez and Taijuan Walker. Now, we sit down to record this on Sunday before the Dodgers series finale, so anything could happen with Taijuan Walker on the mound, but he has pitched a lot better lately. What stood out to you from the Phillies rotation in this dominant run they've been having over the last week or so?
I think they learned from one another, especially that Tigers series. I mean, you watched Nola pitch that first game. He got ahead with a good fastball on both sides of the plate, and the one thing he was able to do was expand the zone. And for him, that means curveballs that could be out of the zone. They look like strikes early on when he throws it and go out of the zone, and then expanding off the plate, especially to the right-handed hitters. We saw him, maybe throw a breaking ball in the outside corner. You get a swing and miss, and then you're able to go 3-4 inches off the plate, and you were getting a lot of chase. So what I saw after that is Taijuan Walker and Zach Wheeler both do the same thing. Wheeler expanded a little differently. I think he expanded above the zone. But Taijuan Walker, I really took a look at this because it was kind of funny to me that he throws a lot of splitters. We both know that. I think he threw 42 in that game. And I was looking, I didn't count exactly, but I'm thinking 85% of those splitters did not end up in the strike zone. And he got a lot of swings and misses, and he got a lot of weak contact on that pitch. So I just think learning from each other and making adjustments, I think that's something we're starting to see these guys do. Obviously against the Dodgers, you can't really do that as much because they're not going to chase out of the zone. But just the thought process that they were thinking, okay, I could expand the zone. No longer do I just have the plate, but I have 3-4 inches off of both sides of the plate and underneath, and with Zach Wheeler above the zone. So to me, that's something that is very important, to pay attention to what's going on in front of you, before you, what the other pitchers are doing to teams, because that helps. I mean, I think it was glaring what they did against the Tigers. And you got to kind of pat them all on the back for saying, you know what, you saw a pattern in the Tigers and you went with it.
So Taijuan Walker, if you remember that start in mid-May in San Francisco against the Giants, they laid off every splitter he threw pretty much because he was not throwing it in the zone, kind of like what you're talking about with the Tigers, that he was expanding. So when you have a patient veteran opposing lineup, they're more prone to swinging at strikes and making Taijuan Walker come into the zone with his fastball. I think we have to mention that the Tigers, while they played over their heads during the month of May, that's an inferior offensive team with a lot of guys who do chase. So it was a promising series for the Phillies rotation, no doubt. I mean, spectacular numbers. It was 2 earned runs in like 36 innings until Nola started getting hit around on Saturday. But I just want to talk about Nola here because that was, the moment that the people will remember from Saturday's game was Rob Thompson getting ejected after Nola was throwing away baseballs and was denied by the umpires to get a new baseball. It became this whole scene. I want to get your take on just what happened there, whether you think the umpires were in the right, but also this is another example of Aaron Nola not really being used to the pitch clock and using techniques or, shadily using techniques to try to game the pitch clock perhaps. And that kind of just speaks to, like, we're in the middle of June here. A lot of pitchers have adapted to it. It doesn't seem like he fully has yet.
Yeah, I think he made a little bit of a mistake in his presser after the game by saying, I was looking for a few extra seconds on the clock. I think the umpires know that. They know what teams are doing to try to wiggle through the system. But I mean, to admit it, that's probably not the best thing in the world, because now you're kind of labeled that, hey, this guy's just going to keep throwing balls out of the game because, he needs a little extra time on the clock. So I'm not really sure he should have done that. I don't think there's any doubt what he's trying to do. I think it's very obvious. The ball that he threw out, he never even rubbed it up. He never tried to rub it up. He just kind of took it out of his glove and threw it away. So to me, that's almost... Here's the bad part. I think he's thinking more about the pitch clock than what he's supposed to be doing on the field at times. And maybe that's kind of leading him into making mistakes on the mound. I watched Aaron Nola early in the game on Saturday. He looked good. You know, his fastball was on point, especially to the outside part of the plate to the right-handed hitters. His curveball was pretty good. And then all of a sudden he kind of the thing is that team wears you down. The Dodgers wear you down, and they will foul pitches off with 2 strikes. And sooner or later, that pitcher's going to make a mistake. And the one thing about the Dodgers, especially the top of that lineup, they don't make mistakes. And the Phillies, on the other hand, are doing one cardinal sin. They're letting Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman dictate their at-bats. You have to be able to show them in off the plate and say, hey, look, I mean business. If you're giving those two a lot of, I guess, comfortable at-bats and comfortable pitches, they're going to destroy you. And they've proven it again. I mean, in both games, they were 13 for 26 in the opening series out in LA. You can't let those two guys beat you. And
to have those guys batting back to back, I mean, we all know that they're superstars, they're MVPs, but they also, just to your point, they really do dictate an at bat. They control the strike zone. Those are two guys who are not going to expand and have the ability and the confidence in themselves to lay off a pitch that's just off the plate on the outside corner. I mean, that is painstaking to go through those two guys in a row. And on Saturday, Nola's first really big mistake, he had retired the first 8 batters he faced. He was ahead 1-2 in the count to James Outman, the number 9 hitter. He puts him on base with a double. And then in the span of 4 pitches, it goes double, double, single. The Phillies are behind 2-0. Whole complexion of the game changes.
Yeah, there was a little mistake, too, in left field by Schwarber. He never should have thrown the first one home. The base hit by Mookie Betts. Should have just hit the cutoff guy, let the run score, keep Mookie Betts on first base. That inning could have been completely different at that given time because, you know, in your mindset, everything kind of starts going wild when you have a runner on second base because, you know, another base hit scores them. And I just think Kyle Schwarber could have did things a little bit differently. And it happened almost again on the very next play when Freeman hit the base hit, but Sosa smartly cut the ball off and made sure that Freeman didn't go to second base. Nonetheless, Aaron Nola is just mistake prone. I think he's got really good stuff. You watch him pitch and you're like, all right, this guy, 4 pitches in the first inning, I believe, on Saturday. To me, that's Aaron Nola, pitching to contact, not being afraid of things. When he starts getting into the strikeout mode, I think he ends up making mistakes later on in the ball game just because he depletes himself as the game moves on. I mean, pitchers do get tired. Against a team like the Dodgers, you can't make those types of mistakes. He left that one to David Peralta out over the middle of the plate, and Peralta destroyed it. And then the 6th inning, just everything, he had nothing left when he went back out for the 6th.
Yeah, Nola last.
Or was that the 7th?
It was the 7th. The 6th was when that whole dramatic ordeal happened with the ejection.
Correct.
The 7th is when they left Nola alley, put 3 or 4 guys on, 3 of them.
What did you think of that ejection? I mean, well, not necessarily the ejection, but what did you think of Nola and the whole throwing the ball away?
I mean, honestly, I think you have to look at it from an unbiased perspective, which is that, yeah, this is a tactic or a technique that pitchers can use to circumvent the system. So in that regard, I don't think you can really blame an umpire for – it is a discretionary thing. It could lead to a slippery slope, but I think yesterday probably was an example where the umpires felt comfortable that Nola was doing that. Bill Miller, the crew chief, cited a prior example this season of San Francisco's Alex Cobb doing the same thing in a game that crew worked. I think, the bigger question is something Nola said, which was how fast do you need the game to be, which I think is like the overarching point here. The pitch clock has really worked. Games have sped up significantly. The Phillies have had like some games over the last week or so that were just over 2 hours. But there are points where it starts getting a little silly when you factor in, like, remember earlier in May, Bryce Harper wasn't being given enough time to put his brace on once he reached first base, which is like a health issue. I do see the point pitchers have. That every baseball feels different. So if you don't like the grip of a baseball as soon as you put it in your hand, and you're a pitcher like Aaron Nola who has a knuckle curve and a 2-seamer, a guy who relies on, multiple different grips, that's a really important thing. So you just wonder about Nola right now. He has it in his head that he needs to throw a pitch within 15 or 20 seconds. He has in his head that he's not able to throw baseballs out as frequently as he has in the past. He has in his head probably right now that he's allowed a home run in 10 consecutive starts, the only pitcher in the majors to do so. It just seems like a lot swirling around in a pitcher's brain that wasn't really factored in a year or two ago.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And it is a lot to kind of take in, especially if you're very slow out there. I mean, Aaron Nola is just, his mentality is slower. Everything about him is just, okay, I'm going to go through what I have to do, and there's a process, and his process is a little bit slow. I mean, I understand that some of these guys don't like it. I was one to get the ball and go, so I could, that clock wouldn't have anything to do with me on the mound. And I think at some point what they're going to do is they're going to make it 20 seconds. What is it now? It's 20.
It's 15 with the bases empty. Yeah.
They're going to make it 15 or 20 and 25 at some point.
Yeah, I think
the games are an easier watch. I don't know if the players realize that, but it's an easier watch for fans.
Honestly, at this point, especially position players that you talk to about it are used to it. They think that it's been beneficial, conducive to, more entertainment. But yeah, if they were to increase it from 15 and 20 to 20 and 25, what is that adding, like 2 minutes to a game maybe? So you're already saving a ton of time.
Yeah, but what's going to happen is that in 4 years, all these guys that have been using it in the minor leagues that are going to be up, it's just going to be old hat. So they're not even going to be worried about it. There's not even going to be a thought process about it. It's just going to be, okay, we know the pitch clock. We've been doing it for years in the minor leagues. And when you get here, it's not going to be anything. So I think you had to start somewhere. Maybe they might have started a little bit too quick, but I think it's the right thing for baseball. I really do.
At Team Toyota, they've been selling and servicing new and used Toyotas in your community for over 50 years. And you can reserve your next new Toyota with them today. You'll get a realistic timeline, and even in this crazy market, they won't charge you over MSRP. Or don't wait at all. With over 75 certified Toyotas, including a bunch of RAV4 and Highlanders, you can drive one home today. And you can always trust them to maintain your current vehicle. Their service and collision centers are high-tech, comfortable, and will save you time and money. Team Toyota can help you go anywhere you want, but they'll always be your hometown team. Just visit teamtoyota.net and choose from 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton. You can catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone, including a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Rick, as we're sitting down to do this Sunday morning, the Phillies just made a roster move. Alec Bohm activated from the injured list less than 2 weeks after going on with a hamstring strain. It was interesting thinking about who the Phillies were going to trim from their roster to activate Bohm. Was it going to be Drew Ellis? Was it potentially going to be like the release of a veteran like Josh Harrison, Dalton Guthrie perhaps? Well, the Phillies ended up optioning Drew Ellis to AAA. He was the roster casualty. But what an impression he made last weekend with that 2-homer game. Tell you what, beyond even the 2-homer game, he had quality plate appearances, took some pitches, showed you why he had put together such a good month-long run at AAA to earn that call-up.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it this way. I mean, he knew the reason why he was up. The reason why he was up was to come up and, take Alec Bohm's place, play some third base, and just try to produce, try to do anything you possibly can. He produced nicely. He did a lot of nice things. Played a decent third base. And, I think in his mindset, he probably knew that he was going to be that odd guy out. I mean, it sucks for them. It really does. It's kind of funny. Like, we get excited when a player comes back, but there's always 2 or 3 guys that are sitting in that clubhouse saying, is it going to be me? Is it my turn? Is it my time to go back down? Or my time, like in a Harrison situation, would probably be, am I going to get DFA'd now? But it's baseball. This is a business. This is how it's played. I mean, it's nice to know that you got a guy that could still come up and produce a little bit if needed in the future. The one thing about the Alec Bohm thing that I'm a little surprised that they did it this quickly is that when you think about it, on Friday, he was running the bases and whatnot beforehand, trying to get back into shape. And he said he felt a little tightness. To me, that the hamstrings are dangerous. I mean, one extra little pull on it and it's going to go again. So I'm a little surprised in that sense, but I mean, if he feels good today, I think that's the bottom line. I guess he's ready to go. And, you just make sure that he's not putting too much pressure on it the first week or so that he's back, but it's nice to have Alec Bohm back.
Well, especially because initially the Phillies called it hamstring tightness, and Bohm, if you remember, he sat out that Sunday night game in Atlanta. The Phillies lost to Spencer Strider. Rob Thompson said they were just trying to get Bohm 48 hours off his feet with the off day the next day. So Bohm was back in the lineup 2 days later, and he aggravated the hamstring injury, fielding a slow roller, and then it became a hamstring strain that it was termed.
Mm-hmm.
But, you always worry about returning a guy too early from an injury like that.
Well, I mean, every day people have had hamstring pulls, and they're not fun. They don't just go away. I mean, it's not what there's a lot of treatment involved, especially at the big league level. I mean, you're trying to get blood out of there, and I mean, it's not an easy injury to kind of recoup from. But as long as it wasn't torn, I think that's the main thing. As long as it's not torn, you're in a lot better shape.
Well, Bohm's a big addition back to the lineup. He's the Phillies' leading hitter with runners in scoring position, 339 on the year. Still leads them with 37 RBI. It's interesting. Bohm's nearing 1,500 career plate appearances. He's been up for a while now. He has 30 home runs and 1,443 plate appearances. So there are a lot of things that he does well with the bat. He uses all fields. He's shown a knack for clutch hitting since he got up. That's been true of Alec Bohm since 2020 when he came up as a 23-year-old. But you just wonder, when is that power going to show up consistently? He had a good little run leading into that injury. He had a 2-run homer against the Braves. He drove in 2 runs the day before that. But there was all the talk in the offseason about the muscle that he added. And is Alec Bohm going to be like a 25-homer guy yet? Hasn't materialized. You wonder, the corner infield, you need pop traditionally from those positions. Yeah. And you just wonder, if it's going to really develop for Alec Bohm or if this just is what he is.
I think it is what he is, because if you think about his home runs, it's usually a mistake, by the pitcher. And I think he's just a mistake pitch home run hitter. And I think sometimes he gets into a mode where he doesn't know if he wants to pull the ball or he just wants to stay inside of it and hit it to center field. And, where the trajectory takes it, that's what it is. He's very good hitting the ball to right center field. He's one of the best on this team doing that, along with Nick Castellanos now. But I just don't know. I don't know if he has that swing that is just a home run swing. And if he does do that, is his average going to take a hit? I think on this team, you can get away with it. You have guys in Schwarber, Harper, even JT when he gets hot. And if Turner's going in the right direction too.
He sure is, yeah.
But I mean, I just want to see from him, I think you just think of him as a doubles hitter. Don't think of him as a home run hitter right now. If that swing ever changes a little bit and maybe he gets into that mode, then fine. But right now, take what he's given you. I think he's one of those guys that could be more of a table setter at times, which is why he'll bat 6th, 7th in the lineup. It would be surprising, to see him in like a 3 or a 4 hole ever, right? At least right now, because he just doesn't have that type of pop right now.
Yeah, you mentioned Trea Turner coming on. It's really true. In fact, he has increased his hard hit rate each month this season, drastically increased it in the month of June compared to the last 2 months. His barrel percentage, the number of balls that you hit on the barrel, that's increased every month. His swing and miss rate has decreased every month. So he really does seem to be kind of just veering back into Trea Turner territory, which is great to see because everybody's had their hot streak so far. Schwarber's getting hot right now. JT was red hot for 3 weeks before going ice cold. Castellanos has been pretty much consistent. Brandon Marsh was great in April. Trea Turner has not had that prolonged hot streak where he carries a team for a couple days and we see the full scope of his skill set. Might be happening right now.
He's getting there. I will say that he is getting there. He's hitting some balls hard, not necessarily with a lot of lift besides that 2 home run game he had last week where I think he had 4 hits. He came very close to being 5 for 5 in that game. It's just one of those things where you can't try to do too much. And sometimes the pitcher dictates what you can and can't do. If he's not exactly getting a lot of pitches middle of the plate when you really look back, he's getting a lot of pitches around the plate. And that's something that if he continues to do what he's doing now, he's going to start getting more pitches on the plate because of the fact that he's not going to be chasing. And if you walk him, at some point he's going to start turning those walks into doubles now, because we saw him take off yesterday for a steal, although JT was called for batter interference. But I look at it this way. If he starts barreling the ball like you said he is, and he continues to do that, his batting average is going to find its way up. And I think a lot of people think because he got paid so much money that he's a home run hitter. he's never been like a prolific, like a 40 home run hitter. I mean, he will pop out 30 at some point during his contract. I do know that. But I mean, don't expect that from him. They expect him to hit a home run every now and again, but expect him to be on base a lot more.
Yeah, I think Trea Turner is more like a 22 to 24 home run guy who can hit you 36 doubles. But he's spent much of this year hitting 60 points lower than his career batting average. That's not going to sustain himself.
I mean, I'm sure he has a little bit of embarrassment. I mean, because that's what happens. You have these expectations that are so high, and you come in and you're not living up to them. You start to feel like, what's going on up here? What am I doing up here? I find it very interesting. I mean, his whole attitude about trying to change some things where the analytics department said something about his back hip, and he took that into consideration, and it seems to be working for him. You know what I picture? I picture, those stick figure things that they show how they make video games.
Yeah.
And the body movement and stuff like that's what I picture him looking at, and them saying, see your hip, you see your stick figure hip moving. And I just think it's kind of working. He's also, what's interesting is he's kind of fallen into that Bryson Stott and Bryce Harper theory with two strikes. If you notice, he usually uses a little bit of a leg kick up and down. Watch him with two strikes. He keeps that foot on the ground. The reason why I even noticed it is because he hit those 2 home runs last week, and one of them, his feet were standard on the ground. That was a 2-strike one, and he drove it out of the ballpark. The other one, he had a little leg kick out of hanging breaking ball and hit it out of the park. So he's using 2 different approaches, which I think will benefit him in the long run. And I think that 2-strike approach will help him recognize pitches better. Because when you're doing all that movement with your lower half, your eyes tend to move up and down, and you don't see the ball as well. I think a little bit more steadiness with 2 strikes is going to help him out a lot.
Well, it's helped out Bryson Stott, who still leads all of baseball in 2-strike hits.
Yeah.
Coming up this week, Ricky, the Phillies hit the road after the Dodgers series. They have 4 in Arizona, 3 in Oakland. Arizona is a place where the Phillies have not played well in recent years. You remember, lost 2 or 3 last year, gave up 25 runs in the first 2 games of that series. Got swept the year before in Arizona, lost 2 or 3 the prior time. Even when the Diamondbacks haven't been good, the Phillies do not play well in the desert.
It's been historically, because I can remember going there with the Phillies not faring well.
Yeah. And the Diamondbacks this year, they're legitimately a very good team. 14 games over 500 entering Sunday. They've won 4 in a row in 10 of their last 14. They have that dynamic lineup with Corbin Carroll and Christian Walker and Ketel Marte and McCarthy, who's stealing a ton of bases. What are your thoughts on this upcoming road trip? You have 4 in Arizona, then 3 in Oakland against that historically bad Athletics team.
I think if you can get 2 out of 4 in Arizona, you'd be pretty happy with that. I think most people would say that. And if you should sweep the A's. I know people are saying, well, they're playing a little bit better right now. I don't care. They're really not a good team. But that being said, you can't have a letdown. You can't think that they're not a bad team. What you should be thinking is like, let's pound these guys, pound them into the ground and really beat them up badly. That's how you should go into that series thinking. And the other thing is, I think in Arizona, it is an adjustment for pitchers. I know people don't think of it, but the ball flies there. You don't get a great grip on the baseball because it's so dry out there. And I believe that's a little bit of an issue. And I mean, I've played out there. You get that feel that the ball feels like it's oily and it doesn't feel like it's coming out of your hand correctly. So, I mean, that's one of those places where you really have to fight to make an adjustments if you're a pitcher, especially the starters. Obviously, the above sea level thing where the ball flies a little bit better out in Arizona is also true. I think most people only look at Denver and say that's the only place. Well, it's not. That field is a tough place to pitch in.
I would think the batter's eye, too, plays a big role, too. That has to be the best batter's eye in baseball, that dark green.
Straight dark green, yeah.
Yeah. That and Milwaukee stick out to me as if you're a hitter. I mean, you must really get a good eye.
Well, Milwaukee's a little different because they, especially in a day game, there's a lot of light that comes through there. So you struggle a little bit during the day to see the baseball. But out in Arizona, it's usually pretty dark inside. So you get a good look as a hitter, no doubt about it.
Well, the Phillies are going to miss Zach Gallen, the D-backs ace, because he pitched Sunday in the series finale against the Tigers. Phils are 13-22 on the road this season, second worst in the National League to the Rockies. They've lost 10 of their last 14 away from Citizens Bank Park. So this is a big opportunity for them to correct that this week in Arizona and Oakland.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot for listening to the Phillies Talk podcast. He's Ricky. I'm Corey. We'll catch you later in the week.